the challenges, and we're half an hour in, so I apologize. And if you folks want to hang in there, I see there's 10 people who have hung in there, and we'll make sure that you get well rewarded at the end. But we're going to cover 4 things today. Number one is the number one strategy for driving sales performance. And I wish I had all this knowledge when I was a VP of sales. I would have blown my sales numbers away. I also want to share with you what percentage of companies are really on the right track, and why some companies who are on the right track are still failing to have impact. And then share a revolutionary approach to developing world-class performance. Thanks, Patrick. What I want to do is just start with a definition, because I talk about performance, and some people get performance and results confused. And there, in many cases, high performance does equal high results, but not necessarily all the time. And the difference between performance is the controllable elements, or the inputs that a sales organization can do. So for example, number of calls, targeting the right customers, prospecting well, having great selling skills, great attitude, work ethic, where results are really the outputs. They're metrics, sales, calls per customer. So not necessarily the same. I offered at a conference I was at a pitching example. If you have a pitcher who pitches a one-run ball game, but his team doesn't score any runs, his performance is great, but the result isn't. Versus a pitcher who may give up 10 runs, but his team scores 12. Well, performance was poor, but at the end of the day, results were right on target. So I was going to take a poll here. I'm afraid to venture my luck on the technology, but I'd like you to all think about. I put 7 items. I was just at a conference, and they talked about different initiatives to drive sales performance. And yes, they're all important. I.e., you can always hire more sales reps, improve your sales process. You can, bring your reps in and do selling skills training. You can have a real focus on executional excellence. You can develop strong sales managers, adopt a CRM or any new technology on your CRM, or improve lead generation. And let me share with you, according to a survey of 103 CEOs, and they were asked the following. What do you consider has the most positive impact on sales rep performance? And they gave them a list of items: quality of manager, sales skills training, compensation reward. You can see the list here. And I was going to poll you to ask what you guys thought. And here's the answer. We'll skip the poll. But the number one answer, according to these 103 CEOs who were surveyed, 76% of them said the number one performance factor was quality of their sales manager. And we know the quality of sales manager is key. High quality sales managers improve a lot of things. One, certainly performance. They improve sales rep engagement, finances. There's also a high level of job satisfaction reported, and they tend to deliver 4 times more of the revenue than those poor sales managers. Here's another study which goes on to share the same thing. It's from the Forum Group, and they went out and sought to understand how sales forces sustain competitive advantage. And one of the outcomes were specifically on frontline sales managers, and they found that sales managers directly influence some of the key success factors, like helping sales reps think strategically, providing coaching and feedback, and they're very good at enforcing discipline on processes, whether it be a sales process, performance management, use of CRM. They're very helpful in those areas and play a strong role. What also came out of the Forum study is that sales managers were a strong differentiator between top sales forces and bottom sales forces. They also found that sales managers play a critical role in driving performance. And one of the things that they said was companies can unleash the power of competitive advantage by developing great sales managers. Another study went on to show on that 70% of your top performers who leave due to relationship with their sales manager, which is very interesting. So to skip the survey or the poll and talk about and ask, really, if you guys can think about, what are the top 5, out of these top 5, what's the biggest skill that impacts performance? Is it performance management, leadership or leading, coaching, business planning, or reviewing reports? So let me share here a study from the Corporate Executive Board, who does research on best practices. And in their report called The Anatomy of a World-Class Coaching Program, they found that coaching is the #1 management activity that drives sales performance. And they have 3 key findings that came out of that study. Sales managers who spend more time in the field will outperform those who don't by 17%. Highly effective sales coaches versus poor performing sales coaches show a 19% increase in terms of performance. And by focusing on the right sales reps, which we'll talk about in shifting the performance curve, by focusing on your Bs, you can get an additional 8% increase in performance. So let's look at this performance curve. Most sales forces, we look at it as a bell curve. You've got your A, Bs, and Cs, with 20% of your folks being top performers, 60% in the middle, and your C performers who are 20% who are not performing. And by coaching, what we want to do, or what we do by effectively improving our sales reps' skills, behaviors, competencies, is we're able to shift the curve. If we make each of our reps better in one area, we can shift that curve of performance and basically move our B players to B pluses or A's to A pluses. And that is what the process of coaching effectively does. So again, we were going to do a poll here, and let's just skip this and let's get into really looking at the impact that having a strong sales management or sales manager has on any of the strategic initiatives that you may be looking at for this year. So if your company's decided to hire more sales reps, well, the reality is having very strong managers, they tend to hire better. And they also tend to hire much stronger reps than the poorer managers. Okay, so there's a very positive impact of having strong managers if you want to add on new sales reps. If you want to improve your sales process, as we discussed earlier, having strong sales managers, they're very good at maintaining compliance and ensuring that processes are followed by being out there. So that again has a very positive impact on performance. If you're thinking of improving selling skills, well, having a sales manager to coach and reinforce whatever training you do gives you a much stronger impact on any training initiative that you do. Execution, again, sales managers are key to driving execution and making sure that every rep is doing and following whatever the corporate direction is. Adopting a CRM. Well, we know that 50% of CRMs fail, and really the question is it because of technology or is it because of poor management? And we think it's probably the latter. If you look at improving lead generation, certainly having strong managers in place will help you help the reps follow up on leads, the right leads, and make sure that, hey, we're really using that lead generation process to our maximum benefit. So in summary, the key message I have, if we're talking about driving high performance, sales leadership or your sales managers are the key to driving high performance. And sales coaching is the fuel that drives that. So let's look. This is, let's call him Patrick, because Patrick's on the line here. And Patrick said to me, I actually have a VP of sales I know whose name is Patrick, and he said, Stephen, I know sales manager success is critical to my success. The problem is I just don't know what to do about it. And that's an issue many sales managers face, right? Okay, I know this. The information you shared with me today, Stephen, isn't really new. I'm aware of it. I just don't know what to do about it. So last year we started the STAR Sales Management Survey, and we went out to survey sales managers across the world, sales leaders across the world, and every continent was accounted for. It was cross-industry. We had over 300 sales leaders across the world who had put input into the sales manager survey. And all those who have attended and those who've put up with a bit of the challenge up front, we'll send a copy of this to you. But I wanted to take one small cross-section which relates to what we're just talking about. And out of that, we looked at asking our sales leaders, how important a responsibility is coaching? And 94% agreed or strongly agreed that coaching was a key sales management responsibility. We went back and asked the same group, and we said, okay, does your organization provide ongoing support in the area of coaching? Well, only 52% agreed or strongly agreed that that was important. So the interesting thing is there's a major disconnect between how important we perceive a skill and how well we're supporting it. As well as if we know that's a key skill to driving performance, then why aren't more sales organizations really providing support in that area? So on the other end, there's something shocking that the other 50% of companies who are doing nothing certainly are not performing well. And those may be the organizations that continuously miss quota and are continuously struggling to keep up with their sales that management is asking for them. But for the 50% that have the right strategy in place, which is developing strong sales managers, there's some bad news, because the path to success of developing strong sales managers is paved with tons of potholes. And I want to share some of those with you because you may be one of the top 50% of companies that are doing it, but not getting the result you desire. And again, one of my good buddies, Paul, who's been working on coaching for a number of years, says, you know what, I have been working on coaching for the last 3 years. I'm just not sure if my managers are really effective coaches. So here's what I want to do for you folks. And we talked about bonuses. This is a great bonus. It's worth $500. And it'll help you answer the question, how effective are you if you're a frontline sales manager, or are one of your sales managers in terms of coaching effectiveness? And from that, you can actually gauge how well your individual manager or yourself is doing, and then you can develop a plan to improve. And we'll talk about how to access that at the Q&A session. So if we ask ourselves, why do sales managers, in all the studies I've seen, and the CEB did a study and a number of companies did studies, which basically showed that sales managers tend to perform poorly as coaches. Okay, and here's several reasons. One, coaching is a very specific skill set that requires what we call a coaching mindset. It means asking as opposed to telling. It's more time consuming to get things done as opposed to just telling someone to do it. Most companies don't have a formal coaching process. Managers lack the skill and the training, and they're probably not receiving coaching from their managers. So again, really to sort of create coaching in an organization, it needs to be part of the culture. And they probably don't have very many tools to do that. So here's what those 50% of companies who were surveyed are doing. And here's part of the problem, because many of them will do, and I think it's almost close to 95% of companies do traditional sales management training. And what that looks like is a bunch of happy faces sitting in a room for 1 or 2 days that they probably never get back in their life, going through a facilitated training session. Well, there's a variety of issues, landmines, potholes that go along with that. And let me share those with you as you start to reflect on the fact is training sales managers into leaders is very different than training sales reps. Number one, traditional sales training fails because there's no assessment pre and post. If we're looking at coaching and really training managers to be great coaches or develop them to be great coaches, how do we measure where they are and then where they are 6 months or a year out? There's really no assessments for that, except the one I talked about earlier. Where it fails is most training without reinforcement. 87% of skills are lost within 30 days. Well, if the next level of management is not reinforcing it, which they usually don't, well, sales management training, as you see, dissipates within 30 days. They tend to do a variety of things, more demonstration, as a PowerPoint presentation, some audio visual, maybe some pre-reading. But the number one factors that drive learning and retention are teaching one-on-one, which is coaching, learning by doing, having the sales managers go out in the field and coach and then come back and discuss it, and also having opportunities to discuss with their colleagues are the top 3 ways to make learning, improve knowledge retention in any training you do. And here's one of the biggest ones, which I'll talk about because we've created a sort of an answer to this. But if you look, what accountability does a sales manager have post taking traditional sales management coaching training? Very little. If their manager doesn't come back to them and say, how are they doing? It defaults very quickly. So there's no built-in accountability to make sure that that ticks. If a sales rep does sales skills training, well, there's a much greater accountability component to that, where the sales manager goes out and checks to see how they're doing from a skill implementation perspective. And here's the last reason, and there may be others, but here's one of the last reasons, and it comes from a top 50 thought leader in the area of sales leadership. And his name is Mike Myatt. Mike has a book out called Hacking Leadership. And he wrote an article on Forbes.com, which I'm happy to share with you. I'll share a couple tidbits from it, but the name of the article is called The Number One Reason Why Leadership Development Fails. So if you Google that, you'll find the article on Forbes.com. And here's what Mike says. Number one, the challenge is that training is the number one reason leadership development fails. And what he says is, while training is often accepted as productive, it rarely is. And I talk about those 1 or 2 days that you never get back. So his answer to really developing leaders is, don't train leaders. Really what you need to do is coach them, you need to mentor them, disciple them, develop them, and please don't attempt to train them. So we've talked about 5 reasons why the traditional approach to sales management training just doesn't work. So really it's time to sort of knock down these walls and create a different approach. And that's what we've done. That's what I want to share with you as one of the key ways that you can drive performance and build that world-class sales team by looking at different ways of sales management training. And here's just in summary, let's summarize, we're getting close to the end. And I think you guys know this, there's tons of research out there, but sales managers are the engine that drive performance in any sales organization. Okay, number 2, in order to do that, you need to develop your sales managers to be great coaches so they can build and drive a high performance in your organization. And lastly, the traditional approach, so the 50% of companies that are doing something, most of them are failing because they're taking traditional approaches to a non-traditional solution of developing sales leaders. Okay. So here's the excitement. And I believe we're the only company across the world that does this. And we take a 12-month development process. One, we assess to benchmark where sales managers are as coaches. We can talk about those specifics. We train, but we don't train the traditional way. We actually have an online virtual learning module. We coach them to sustain the behavioral change. And then we go back and we reassess. We also build in accountability at all levels of the process. So the first step we do is assess, and we've developed a proprietary STAR sales coaching effectiveness report. It's like a 360. If you see the picture on the left where you've got your sales reps giving input to your manager, we don't ask the boss because the boss doesn't receive coaching, or their peers. We ask the people who receive coaching to give input to the manager. And then we develop an 11-page, or I think it's a 14-page report that will cover 6 dimensions of effective coaching, which looks like, are the sales reps receptive? What's the quality of the manager? What is their leadership? How well are they in terms of supporting sales activities? Are they able to be flexible in coaching? Do they coach for performance? And how much time do they spend in the field? Step 2, we get out of the classroom and we go virtual. And virtual allows the manager to go through different chapters of a module at their own pace. So implement one component of what we call our focused coaching methodology, which is really focused on and very effective at changing behaviors, improving competencies, and dealing with behavioral changes. So it's a change approach to coaching. We then follow that up, and we know managers are very busy. And given the fact that they're busy, we want to offer them reinforcement, but at a pace that works for them. And we develop what we call STAR laser coaching. And the beauty of laser coaching is every Friday we open up a calendar where any of the managers who are taking our program can connect for a half hour, work through one specific issue. and come up with a plan on how they're going to solve that issue. And then they can book the next week, they can book the next month. It's complete flexibility, but we support the implementation of our coaching methodology. Lastly, we provide tools that improve effectiveness, such as a field visit report. We have part of the key process that we put in place is building a coaching plan for each rep. So there is a tangible outcome to the training. And if we can improve in one area, then each of our reps would improve their performance. And then lastly, what we do is, given the most important and finite asset the managers have is their time, and that has a positive impact, we allow them to start planning how much time they want to spend in the field and with whom. And what we'll do is we'll be happy for those who have hung in there with me to provide you those tools as a bonus, and we'll tell you how to get the bonus shortly. The other thing we do, and we allow companies to manage it themselves, but we're happy to manage it, and we work with the sales executive. We insist upon having sales management team huddles, and sales managers love this. So every time they meet, whether it's 3 or 4 times a year as a team, we set aside an hour to talk about best practices. Maybe it's a case study on one rep that they're having challenges with, and how they can become better coaches, learning from each other. So in order to get great coaching, you've got to create the culture. And this is a matrix of accountability. And if you look, the rep has an accountability, the manager does, the head of sales, as well as STAR, we provide support as well. So let's just take one item and let's look at, for example, the most important one, which is building a coaching plan, number 3. So the rep is responsible for building their own development plan, which becomes the manager's coaching plan. The manager can co-facilitate it, review it. We ask the head of sales to make sure that they're seeing that their managers developed very strong plans for each of their reps. And as STAR, we actually coach the process of developing that plan. So we build in the accountability to make sure there's outcomes. And the key outcomes are, 1, the manager has a plan to improve their own skills. They have a plan for each of their reps on how to improve their rep skills. They have a plan in place on how much time they're going to spend in the field. And then we have a bunch of follow-ups to support and make that tick. So what we're talking about is a revolution in sales management training. And at STAR, what we do is we don't just train sales managers. We assess them, we train them, we coach them, and we develop them. So for all of you who say, hey, maybe this sounds really interesting, our program consists of 2 coaching effectiveness snapshots, which are done pre and post, usually 6 months to 12 months post, access to our virtual training module, and 6 laser coaching sessions. If you were to actually take that whole package, there'll be about $2,700 per sales manager. But as a special offer for the next hour, we're going to offer it up to you at $1,500, and that's substantial savings. And I want to actually give you access to that offer, which you can click on the button and see, as well as if you click on the Sign Up Now button, it also gives you an opportunity to check out the many bonuses that we've promised you. There's a link on that page to the bonus section. So I'm going to leave that up for everyone to see, and then really ask, and I've got to shift over to the control room to see, and maybe if you want to put your questions in chat, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you. Stuart, do you have any questions? Doug, Muriel, you've hung in there from the beginning. Can you give me feedback? Do you guys have any questions you'd like to throw out? Well, I'm back up here, and thank you for putting up with the technical issues. A number of you hung in through the process, and I really appreciate that. And I hope this has been a learning session for you, and there's some really good takeaways. And if you want to contact me, my number is 905-737-4548. If you have any questions, thank you, Stuart, for your note, and Muriel, I think you hung in from the beginning, so I really do appreciate that. Hopefully the next one will be a lot better. Content's the same, but certainly technical difficulties become quite a nuisance certainly for me and for anyone watching. I don't know if I would have hung in myself, so thank you. Good coaching, and again, I'll open it up for questions. Okay, well, seeing as there's no questions, I want to say thank you. Please click on the sign up now link, which will take you to the free bonus page on my site, and then you can pick up all the information you need on our coaching tools, on our sales management survey report, as well as on how to get a coaching effectiveness snapshot for yourself if you're a frontline manager or one of your frontline managers. So again, thank you. We actually have made it under 4 o'clock, which says given technical difficulties, we certainly sped up the process and hopefully have delivered a value as I promised up front. Thanks again. And why some companies who are on the right track are still failing to have impact.